America's strongest rivals shaped trade, war, and technology. This story tracks how those relationships rose, hardened, and still matter. Now, we focus on four powers: China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. Each challenged Washington in a different era and domain. Some were once partners of convenience, others were adversaries from the start. All became central to American strategy. This is not just about conflict, it is also about trade flows, leverage, sanctions, and the technology each side guarded. First, China, the biggest long-term competitor, economically entangled with America, yet locked in strategic rivalry across Asia and beyond. In the early Cold War, Washington backed Taiwan and treated Communist China as a hostile revolutionary power. That began to change when U.S. leaders saw value in splitting Beijing from Moscow during the Sino-Soviet divide. Richard Nixon's 1972 visit opened the door. It was a diplomatic shock that reshaped global power politics. Formal diplomatic recognition followed in 1979. From there, ties expanded through business, education, and global manufacturing. For decades, U.S. companies gained lower-cost production. China gained capital, technology exposure, and export-driven growth. Trade boomed so fast that the two economies became deeply connected, even while political mistrust never disappeared. China's entry into the World Trade Organization accelerated that boom and tied it tighter to world markets. Military contact also existed, but carefully. In the 1980s, shared concern about the Soviet Union created limited cooperation. That period never became an alliance. It was tactical, narrow, and temporary, not a deep defense partnership. Over time, Taiwan, human rights, the South China Sea, cyber issues, and industrial policy pushed relations into friction. Today, China is America's largest strategic economic rival, partner in commerce, competitor in technology, challenger in military power. The trade benefit for America was scale: cheap consumer goods, dense supply chains, and pressure on inflation for years. The trade benefit for China was enormous: export earnings, factory growth, foreign investment, and industrial upgrading. But dependence became a risk. Washington now worries about critical minerals, electronics, batteries, and strategic manufacturing exposure. On military technology, today's U.S.-China relationship is less exchange and more guarded contact to prevent accidents and escalation. So with China, the relationship bloomed through geopolitics and trade, then hardened under security competition. Next comes Russia, America's historic nuclear rival and the other superpower that defined the original Cold War. For decades, Washington and Moscow faced each other through proxy wars, nuclear deterrence, espionage, and ideological struggle. The Soviet collapse changed everything. Suddenly, the rivalry did not vanish, but it did loosen. In the 1990s, America and Russia explored a new relationship built on arms control and post-Soviet stabilization. One of the biggest areas of cooperation was nuclear security: securing, dismantling, and monitoring dangerous weapons material. That cooperation mattered because both sides wanted loose Soviet-era weapons kept away from rogue states and traffickers. There were also hopes for broader integration between Russia and the West, including structured dialogue with NATO. But expansion of NATO, conflicting security visions, and Russian resentment kept tension alive beneath the surface. The 2008 war in Georgia, the 2014 seizure of Crimea, and the 2022 invasion of Ukraine shattered remaining trust. Today, Russia and America remain major nuclear powers with almost no real strategic warmth between them. Trade between them has collapsed compared with earlier decades, leaving only a narrow commercial relationship. The past trade benefit was straightforward. Russia sold energy and raw materials, while Western markets offered capital and goods. The past security benefit was more unusual: joint work on reducing nuclear danger after the Soviet breakup. But current military tech exchange is effectively gone. The relationship is now defined by deterrence, sanctions, and war risk. So Russia's relationship with America bloomed briefly after the Cold War, then soured into renewed confrontation. Now Iran, a case where an old partnership turned into one of America's most enduring hostile relationships. Before 1979, Washington and Tehran were close. Iran was a major regional partner under the Shah. That relationship grew through anti-Soviet strategy, oil politics, and large U.S. arms sales to Iran. Then came the Iranian Revolution. The Shah fell, the embassy hostage crisis erupted, and relations broke apart. Diplomatic relations were severed in 1980. Since then, distrust has shaped every phase of the relationship. Iran sees America as a threat to regime survival. America sees Iran as a destabilizing regional adversary. The main flashpoints became nuclear activity, sanctions, Gulf security, proxy groups, and the balance of power in the Middle East. Unlike China, there is no broad trade cushion here. Sanctions have kept normal commerce extremely limited. That means the old trade benefit disappeared. The old military tech exchange disappeared too and has not returned. The only real modern contact has come through diplomacy, pressure, indirect talks, and crisis management. So Iran's relationship with America bloomed under monarchy, then collapsed into a long revolutionary standoff. Finally, North Korea, the most frozen relationship of the four, still shaped by the Korean War. The war ended in an armistice in 1953, not a peace treaty, leaving the conflict politically unresolved. Since then, North Korea has treated the U.S. military presence in Korea and Japan as a direct threat. Washington, in turn, has centered its policy on deterrence, alliance defense, sanctions, and denuclearization pressure. There have been openings, negotiations, summit moments, and temporary diplomatic thaw, but no durable breakthrough. Unlike China or even post-Soviet Russia, there was never a broad economic relationship to stabilize the rivalry. Trade is essentially non-existent. Military tech exchange is non-existent. The relationship runs on pressure, signaling, and brinkmanship. North Korea instead built leverage through missiles, nuclear tests, and the threat of regional instability. So this relationship never really bloomed in the normal sense. It only shifted between crisis and negotiation. Looking across all four rivals, the pattern is clear. Trade softens rivalry only when strategic trust survives. With China, commerce was deep enough to bind both sides, but not enough to stop military competition. With Russia, security cooperation briefly replaced Cold War hostility, then collapsed under clashing power ambitions. With Iran, revolution destroyed an alliance and replaced exchange with sanctions and proxy confrontation. With North Korea, there was almost never normal trust, normal trade, or normal defense contact to begin with. That is why America's rivalries are not all the same. Some are competitive partnerships, some are hardened enmities, and in every case, trade and military technology reveal the real temperature of the relationship beneath the headlines. The future will turn on one question: can competition stay controlled, or will these rivalries become something far worse?